My name is Jason Lee. I was born in Queens, New York, and we moved a lot. Basically, we started in Flushing, Queens, and then when I was around, I think 6 years old, around kindergarten, all of a sudden from the city, we were in the nice suburbs of New Jersey, in actually a very wealthy town. It was a big switch, and it was predominantly a white neighborhood until I got to middle/high school. My parents ran into problems and they separated, and our family kind of got split. My freshman year of high school, I'm in New York State in a totally different school, different neighborhood, mostly Black and Hispanic. My brother went off to live with my grandparents and uncle in Long Island, and I was just living with my mom in a one-bedroom apartment. There was that quick change. So throughout high school, I struggled with like self-image and self-esteem. I didn't have confidence with girls, and I remember I went to the prom with my friend. Uh, and she was always like, let's dance, come on, let's dance. And I hated dancing because I didn't have any rhythm. So I stepped on her feet while we were slow dancing. And my Black and Hispanic friends were like, yo, Jason, you just don't have it. Like, you weren't born with it. So I always believed in my mind that it was a, it was a genetic thing. Like, it was innate. I was born without rhythm. I'm not gonna have rhythm. But it wasn't until one day in college where I actually saw Oprah Winfrey show where they had a choreographer teaching basic steps for the party. And he was teaching people how to nod and shake their shoulders. And I remember trying to do it and I was really off rhythm. But I kept practicing this nodding, these basic steps for months behind closed doors. Till one day I got rhythm. I don't know how, but I was doing the two-step, right? And I was feeling that soul. So I remember calling up my friends. I was like, let's go to the bar. Let's go out dancing. My friends was like, what? You hate dancing. You don't like dancing. I was like, let's go. So I went into the corner by myself and I was like doing the same two party steps all night long. And my friends were looking over at me like, what? This guy's crazy. He's losing his mind. And from that point on, I fell in love with the dancing. I'm close with a lot of people in different ways. I'm close with my family. I love them very much. But in one way, I feel right now, being in Korea, the most meaning, like sentimentally, I'm the closest with my grandmother. She's my hero because she was the one that brought my two aunts, my uncle, and my mother, 4 kids, a husband, and her from Korea over to New York City in search of that American dream. And what I heard was that most people in Korea at the time were saying, don't do it. But she was that risk taker. Me coming over to Korea, realized how much sacrifice my grandmother made. She passed away before I came here. That made me really reflect on what she went through, the hardships my family went through. So every time I want to say it's hard, I was like, please, it's nothing compared to what my grandmother went through. I mean, I heard 6 months off the boat in New York, she became a nurse. I mean, how do you do that with that, not even knowing the language well? But I heard she was really smart and studied hard. That's where my mom gets her toughness from, because she was the oldest of her siblings and she was the general in the house. My aunts who were younger used to console us and, have to tell my mom, hey, take it easy on them. And everything's about studying, studying, studying. And we're like, why? We just don't understand it. But now that I come over here and learn about this culture in Korea, everything makes sense. The way my grandmother was, the way my mom was, and my family, and it just comes full circle. So I feel really complete. I wasn't good in school. I wasn't that stereotypical smart kid. I was lost. I was that kid who didn't like studying, who didn't do well in college. And I found something. It was dance. And it was performing. At one point, I found out there was breakdancing classes in the Bronx, in Hunts Point. That led me to finding the street crews in Times Square, New York City, who performed for money. They usually don't let outsiders come into their crew, but I asked them, I remember after a show, if I could get down or show them a little something. And at the time, one of the guys was like, "Yo, do you wanna rock with us? Do you wanna hit with us?" That's what we called it. We called it hitting. I was like, "Yeah, of course." That was kind of my escape, and it was also my breeding grounds for learning how to perform, because people were in your face and they were looking at the Asian guy in a line of like 5 to 6 Black and Hispanic people, and they were all looking like waiting for, what's he gonna do? He's gotta be good. He better be good. So when it was my turn to come out, I may not have been as good as them, but I had to overcompensate by using my character, by smiling and humor. And that was where I learned to really perform and come out. And that's when I started gaining confidence. Then that led to me auditioning. Just the thought of, hey, maybe I can book something. How lovely would it be if I was on a music video or a TV commercial? And next thing I know, I was like traveling internationally, dancing behind artists. And I remember one of my first shows, my friend was like, "You want to go to Venezuela and dance for this artist?" And I was like, "Yeah, definitely, I'm down." And we went and we traveled for this artist. And it was just like, I don't know, 60,000 seat stadium. I remember being like, I can't do this. This is not right. But I had to make a decision. I either do it or I don't. And if I do it, I have to just go full out 100%. I went, I did it. And at that moment, I realized this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what I'm good at, entertaining. Because after the show, I got a little taste of what it was like to be a celebrity, a little taste of what it was like to be like Beatles or Michael Jackson, because people were all of a sudden just screaming and they were on their knees begging for like kisses and hugs. And a guy was like, "Please, can I have your towel, your towel?" And I was like, this is so out of this world. And from that point on, I made a decision to be a performer. And then I had all this self-confidence. And I was proud of who I am. I was proud of who I was. And everything changed from there. I wasn't the best son in terms of like having a job and having my life straight. I kind of felt like a failure in my family's eyes because I wasn't, the successful doctor and lawyer. But it wasn't until I started making money and being on TV, whether it was like a commercials or shows. I remember one of the Thanksgivings or Christmases, my cousins noticed me and they're like, "Oh, Jason, we saw you on this." And then all of a sudden, like, my family was looking at me different, you know? But I mean, I wasn't rich or anything. I was making a little more money now at the time and able to support myself. I booked a national ad for Intel and it ended up being in New York City, like on a large billboard. I forgot how I heard. I heard it through the grapevine through my family that my uncle who lived in Long Island took my grandparents and family and drove over to see it. So when I heard that, that really made me feel good about what I was doing, because, I was always wondering if my family really accepted or believed in me. But to know that they drove all the way out from Long Island to the city to look at my billboard was a great moment, I guess, in my career. I remember when I was auditioning, there was not a lot of Asian dancers in the scene. So when I went out for casting notices, I had to crash a lot of auditions and castings because they were always looking for Black, Hispanic, and white. Asians were never in the category of wanting dancers. So I would have to always go into those and see if they would give me a shot. Now it's like a stereotype. Like if you're Asian, they're like, "Oh, now you either dance or," right? But back then it was totally not like that. When I was in the industry, the way I saw it was like, wow, this is like a license and a legal way of being racist. That's how I saw the entertainment industry. I didn't really get caught up on that. I just tried to go to auditions where I was not asked to and prove that, hey, as an Asian, watch me, look at me. I could kill it just as much as this guy next to me. What it means to be Korean American, in my eyes, is to have the best of both worlds. I know there are Korean Americans struggling with identity here and in America, because a lot of people will say, I'm not Korean enough in Korea, but I'm not American enough in America. But I always try to flip that in my mind and say, I got the best of both worlds. So it's just, I'm always trying to trick myself into believing, flipping things into a different positive light and saying, hey, I got a 2-for-1 special. Everything I've gone through, being able to overcome obstacles, was a result of my history of being Korean and of being American. I got like that New York City hustle fighter mentality, that dirty, gritty mentality. Then I got my grandmother and my family's gritty, dirty hustle mentality of being Korean, that hard worker, the one that has to represent for your family. To me, Korean Americans is having that meaning is to have the best of both worlds. My name is Jason Lee, and this is my Korean American story.